This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
بعد 10 أيام من شنق الرئيس العراقي الراحل صدام حسين استؤنفت اليوم جلسات المحاكمة.
The Anfal trial resumed 10 days after the execution of the late Iraqi president Saddam Hussein. All of the defendants who were accused of committing the crime of mass extermination against the Kurds in the 1980s were present in the courtroom, including the spirit of Saddam, whose chair was deliberately left vacant. These court procedures will be well remembered for Saddam's frequent arguments with the judge. Fahima Mazani reports.
هذه الوجوه تعود لتملأ قاعة المحكمة الجنائية العليا من جديد شاحبة متأملة تنتظر.
Once again, these pessimistic faces have filled the courtroom as they await their fate, which may not be that much different from Saddam Hussein's fate. These court trials may be the beginning of a new drama series on the Anfal episode, although the main actor is no longer present, which was evident by his vacant seat. The new series should be called The Trial of Saddam's Aides, instead of the old title, The Trial of Saddam and His Aides. Saddam Hussein, who was burdened by many accusations and by a large number of the Kurdish victims of mass extermination, left on December 30th before having a chance to witness the end of the series. The 6 other defendants were behind him, including his cousin Ali Hassan al-Majid, known as Chemical Ali. Ali might also be executed for charges of carrying out operations in 1988 that resulted in the killing of more than 100,000 Kurds. One can easily recall the days when Saddam would stand in this courtroom expressing his anger and protests.
وقف فيها الرئيس الراحل غاضبا وأخرى معترضا.
You represent the occupation, not Iraq.
ولأكثر من مرة.
In the eyes of his judges, Saddam Hussein's protests were enough justification to expel him from the courtroom on numerous occasions. Today, Saddam's theatrics are absent, but perhaps we will see different ones. Meanwhile, the district attorney vowed to present more new documents against the defendants.
صدام غاب عن قاعة المحكمة وإلى الأبد إذن، لكن ظروف إعدامه لا تزال حاضرة في ردود الفعل.
Saddam has taken a permanent leave of absence from the court, but the controversy over how he was executed remains and is evident in the continued international reactions. The British Prime Minister Tony Blair finally ended his silence by saying that the way in which Saddam was executed was not at all appropriate. The former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad agreed with Blair's reaction, but also said that the American President George Bush and his ally Blair are war criminals and that they should face the same false justice as Saddam. Mahathir added that the hands of Bush and Blair are stained with more Iraqi blood than the hands of Saddam.
على يدي صدام حسين. والدم العراقي سال اليوم كما في كل يوم غزيرا.
Meanwhile, the Iraqi bloodshed continues. More than 17 people were killed and 25 others were killed in an ambush that was prepared by armed groups. The ambush targeted a vehicle transporting laborers as it was passing through a Shiite area in Baghdad on its way to the airport. The American publication, The Washington Post, estimates that a total number of 17,000 Iraqis were killed in the first 6 months of 2006. This number is 5,000 more than the official number of Iraqis killed during the entire year of 2006, totaling 12,370.
ضحايا العراق خلال العام بأكمله وهو 12,370. الموت الذي يتهدد العراقيين.
The death that has been threatening the lives of Iraqis every day will soon be the fate of Barzan al-Takriti, the non-biological brother of Saddam, and Awad al-Bandar, the former president of Al-Thawra court. The spokesman for the Iraqi government, Ali al-Bandar, said that the 2 men will be hanged within the next couple of days, despite international pleas not to carry out the death sentences.
بتجميد تنفيذ العقوبة.
Somalia's President Abdullah Yusuf Ahmed arrived at the Somali capital, Mogadishu, for the first time since he was elected president in 2004. Before arriving at the capital, Ahmed confirmed that his government will not negotiate with the Islamic courts, saying that this organization is now history.
The Islamic courts have attracted two types of people. While some followers believed in the court system, others were misled. We will pursue the terrorists wherever they are until we either arrest or drive them out of the country. As far as those who were misled, they are part of the Somali people, and we will give them a general pardon provided that they give up their weapons. However, we will not negotiate with the Islamic courts, which had previously rejected talks with us, and our government will only negotiate with the Somali people.
The Somali president added that his country is waiting for the arrival of international troops, which will replace the Ethiopian forces currently deployed in the country. Moreover, Ahmed said that his country does not mind if some Arab troops want to take part in the international peacekeeping forces.
Those who oppose the presence of the Ethiopian forces in Somalia are only a small minority group in Mogadishu. We, the legitimate government of Somalia, are the ones who invited the Ethiopian forces to the country in order to restore stability and security. Those terrorists who oppose the deployment of Ethiopian forces in Somalia do not represent the Somali people. We are currently working to replace the Ethiopian forces by the African Union troops. If some Arab countries want to send their troops to Somalia, we welcome such a move.
Meanwhile, the Somali interim government called on all political blocs and factions, as well as tribal leaders, to come to the bargaining table and hold talks in order to restore stability in the country. According to an official spokesman, the Somali interim government remains committed to resolutions of the International Contact Group Committee on Somalia. The International Committee has called on the government to open a channel of negotiations with all political blocs and tribal groups, with the exception of those whose names included in the so-called list of wanted terror suspects or those affiliated with armed groups.
The road connecting the Somali capital Mogadishu with the town of Baidawa, where the current headquarters of the interim government are located, seems to be very difficult to maneuver. Behind these green hedges stretching along this road, fierce confrontations had erupted between religious court fighters and the Ethiopian and government-backed forces, killing and wounding hundreds of people. The war may have stopped for now, but the impact left behind will haunt Somalis for years to come.
The government ascended to power through war. We have seen lots of destruction, which will haunt us for a long time.
The Somali government expressed regret over all of the destruction caused by the war, calling on all political blocs, with the exception of those whose names were listed in the so-called list of wanted terror suspects or those accused of carrying weapons.
Of course, our policy is to bring reconciliation and achieve stability in the country. Our government welcomes the resolution of the International Contact Committee on Somalia. We are ready to open a channel of negotiation with all political and tribal factions and groups.
Despite the fact that the Somali government is in control of several key areas in the country, it has not transferred its headquarters to Mogadishu. Every time a war ends in Somalia, another one starts. This is where the confrontations have stopped, and these are some of the evidence left behind, bearing witness to a cruel and bitter war.
Perhaps the recent division among the Palestinian resistance is taking attention away from the Israeli practices and aggression against the Palestinian people. In the following report, our correspondent Ziad Halabi tries to understand the position being taken by the Ezzedine al-Qassam brigades and the Martyrs brigades.
Perhaps only a thin line separates the recent internal fighting in the Palestinian territories from a civil war. Palestinians and non-Palestinians are raising many questions about this disorder that has negatively affected the moral conduct and reputation of the Palestinian resistance, as a result, driving Hamas and Fatah members to exchange gunfire in the streets.
The Zionist enemy is benefiting from the fighting. We say to our honorable brothers in the Fatah movement, the many honorable brothers and mujahideen who were with us side by side in confronting the Zionist occupation. We say to them that we hope that they prevent the small group of people from using the Fatah organization as cover for their actions that led to these incidents in the Palestinian territories.
The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which is affiliated with Fatah, also insisted on the need to change the course of events to stop the Palestinians' bloodshed, realizing that internal fighting undermines the Palestinian public's confidence in the resistance movement and makes resistance impossible.
This resistance is honorable. This honor is being disgraced by such behavior, whether by Fatah or Hamas. We do not want to lay blame on one side and not on the other. No, both sides are to blame for such a situation. This resistance has honor, and this honor is being tainted.
As Palestinians being pursued by the occupation forces, of course, this kind of fighting troubles and affects us. We reject such fighting. We hope that the other side rejects this as well. We hope that everyone exercises self-restraint and takes responsibility.
All the resistance fighters from the various factions who are being pursued by the occupation forces understand, just as other Palestinians understand, that Israel benefits the most from any armed conflict against the authority, whether at the political or the security level. They also know that even a small spark has the potential to burn and destroy everything. They know that the national responsibility cannot be fulfilled by giving speeches and rhetoric, and that history will be the judge. Between the gunfire of the occupation and internal fighting, concerned Palestinians are asking serious questions. All the resistance fighters know that the real conflict is with the Israeli occupation, but is it enough just to know and not to put this knowledge into practice? This question must be addressed by both the Palestinian decision makers and armed men.
Defense Minister Amir Peretz's hold on the mantles of his own Labour Party slipped even more today. Tourism Minister Isaac Herzog announced that he is throwing his support to former Prime Minister Ehud Barak in the upcoming Labour primaries. Herzog joins Infrastructure Minister Benjamin Ben Eliezer and Agriculture Minister Shalom Simchon, who have already declared their support for Barak. Labour faction whip Yoram Marziano today blasted what he called the primaries virus that seems to be destroying Labour from inside. He said that instead of dealing with issues of national importance, the Labour Party was consumed with internal politics. Police today continued questioning key figures in the tax authority bribery scandal. Last night, investigators staged a verbal confrontation between two of the top suspects, tax authority head Jackie Matza and the Prime Minister's bureau chief Shula Zaken. Detectives say that the two top suspects in the growing scandal offered conflicting accounts of the same incidents. Matza will be released to house arrest after a week in prison. Matza sent a letter to Finance Minister Avram Herson saying that he is shocked at the charges being leveled at him. Police spokesmen say the letter could spark allegations of obstruction of justice. Finance Minister Herson himself is likely to be investigated by police. Attorney General Menachem Mazuz today approved the investigation of Herson in connection with an alleged fraud scheme relating back to when Herson was head of the Likud section of the National Labor Federation. Charges could include fraud, theft, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit a crime. The case reportedly dates back to 2003, when the director of the Neely Foundation, Ovadia Cohen, allegedly took 5 million shekels to cover black market loans taken by his brother to pay up gambling debts. Cohen was fired, but Herson is accused of failing to report the embezzlement to the police. Overnight, police arrested a car thief suspected in the stabbing of 27-year-old police officer Shlomi Asulim, who is still listed in critical condition. Asulim was stabbed while attempting to arrest the man who is in the process of stealing a car in Rehovot. More in this report from Dennis Zinn.
Investigators into the stabbing of police officer Shlomi Asulim in Rehovot yesterday are hoping that a sports shoe found at the scene of the attack will help incriminate the prime suspect. Tarab Abu Issa, a resident of the Bedouin town of Tel Sheva in the Negev, and a convicted criminal who was on leave from prison, is again in police custody and continues to deny any involvement in the case. In the meantime, police officer Asulim, who was stabbed in the neck with a screwdriver, is fighting for his life at Tel HaShomer Hospital outside Tel Aviv. The initial investigation reveals that around 5 yesterday afternoon, a routine police patrol manned by Asulim received an alert concerning a car theft in progress in Rehovot. The patrol rushed to the site and tried to arrest the thieves. In the ensuing scuffle, one of the robbers was shot in the leg. However, the second lunged at Asulin with a screwdriver and stuck it deeply in his neck before running off through an adjacent field. Asulin and the wounded thief, who is also a known criminal, were evacuated to hospital. Massive police reinforcements backed up by a helicopter did not manage to locate the fugitive. However, soon after midnight, detectives arrived at Abu Issa's home in the Negev. Abu Issa, who was sitting in his living room watching TV after a shower, denied that he had anything to do with the theft or the stabbing and protested the fact that he had been disturbed. Nevertheless, he was arrested, and the police are now hoping that the single shoe found at the site will tie him to the case. Investigators are now combing the area of the attack to try and find the screwdriver used in the stabbing. Abu Issa was brought before the Rehovot Magistrates Court today for an extension of his remand. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
Tensions remain high in the Palestinian territories today, following more violence between Hamas and Fatah supporters. Gunmen in Ramallah fired on the car of former Palestinian Finance Minister Salam Fayyad. Fayyad, who was not in the car at the time, has been critical of the Hamas-led government. In Ramallah, Fatah extremists set fire to 6 stores belonging to Hamas supporters and shot at the home of the Hamas-backed mayor. Eli Walgalanter has more on factional violence.
Fatah gunmen today released Mahdi al-Hamdali, the deputy mayor of Nablus, unharmed 2 days after the Hamas politician was kidnapped in a wave of factional violence. Yesterday, his captors released a video showing Hamdali surrounded by masked gunmen who threatened to carry out widespread attacks on Hamas targets. Hamdali said he was well treated by his abductors and they made no demands of him. He thanked Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas and other officials for working for his release. And Peruvian photojournalist Jaime Razuri is also a free man today. The 50-year-old Razuri was released by his Palestinian kidnappers last night. He was snatched 7 days ago by 4 masked Arab gunmen in Gaza City as he approached the offices of the French news agency where he worked. No group claimed responsibility for the kidnapping, which was the latest in a series of abductions of foreigners by extremist organizations operating in Gaza. An emotional Razuri said he was treated well by his kidnappers.
I said before that I'm very glad to be released, and I give thanks to Mr. President, thanks to Mr. Secretary General, Secretary Amin, and the Minister, and all the persons that I have had something to do with my releasing.
And finally, supporters of PA Chairman Abbas and his Fatah movement staged a massive show of force in Gaza yesterday as the standoff continues with the ruling Hamas party. It was the largest Fatah rally since 1994. Tens of thousands filled the stadium in Gaza City. To hear Mohammed Ghahlan, the party's strongman, threatened retaliation for any attack by Hamas. Senior Abbas aide Tayyib Abdurrahim said Fatah did not want a civil war with Hamas, but would not allow the blood of Fatah loyalists to be spilled. Eli Walgalanter, IBA News.
Palestinian journalists who have been working in areas under siege sent a letter of solidarity to their Lebanese colleagues Firas, Mohammed, and Abed, who remain behind bars.
In another setback to freedom of expression that can be added to the history of Arab journalism, 3 new TV reporters were arrested, Firas Hatoum, Abdelazim Khayat, and Mohammed Baraber, while they were doing their job in a professional and objective manner. They remain in jail until further notice. This violation took place in Lebanon, where journalists pay a heavy price for practicing their right of freedom of expression. They have been incarcerated for more than 2 weeks, which puts the future of freedom of expression in jeopardy. These arrests will have an impact on journalism not only in Lebanon, but in the entire Arab world.
This important issue has preoccupied Lebanon. The journalist's duty is to carry out their own investigations to uncover the truth. Journalists represent the conscience of the people. They are supposed to do their work regardless of their own interests and the situation that they live in. They should keep journalism separate from politics and do their reporting in a professional and objective manner. there. The journalist's main objective should be to uncover the truth.
The arrests of Firas Hattoum and his colleagues were politically motivated to retaliate against their television station, New TV, for uncovering the truth, the fourth branch of government. Journalism is in danger because the executive branch has overpowered the judicial branch and robbed it of its independence.
The
arrests of journalists leaves a negative impact on Arab countries and other countries around the world. Arresting journalists is not the solution. The solution is giving them the space that allows them to operate in a professional manner.
وملائمة حتى تستطيع أن تقوم بمهمتها.
لبنان دائما هو بارومتر العالم العربي.
What is happening in Lebanon is indicative of what is going on in the Arab world. If the situation in Lebanon is okay, then the same is true in other Arab countries. The opposite is true when the situation is worsened in Lebanon. What is happening in Lebanon is not only the result of interior factors, rather it is also the result of foreign factors. Therefore, we can predict what will happen in other Arab countries based on what is going on in Lebanon.
Journalists in Palestine declared their solidarity with their colleagues in Lebanon to protect the freedom of expression.
I believe that the arrests of the Lebanese journalists are in violation of democratic principles and the freedom of expression. This is also an attack on journalism.
The Palestinian people, who have been struggling to achieve their freedom, sent a message of solidarity to the Lebanese people, who always have been in the forefront of cultural awakening, education, and freedom. A message of solidarity was sent from Palestine to Lebanon, expressing hope that the law will be respected in Lebanon and the rest of the Arab countries.
Shiites in Iran celebrated today the Great Feast of Qadr, marking the anniversary of the divine designation by the Prophet Muhammad of Imam Ali as his immediate successor. Felicity was in the air across the country as Shiites reveled in the auspicious occasion. Similar ceremonies were held elsewhere in the Islamic countries where Shiites happily celebrated the joyful event. Leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says the most important duty of Muslims, especially scholars, intellectuals and politicians, is to do whatever it takes to bring Islamic nations closer together, help promote Islamic awakening and distance themselves from divisive issues.
In a meeting with thousands of people from all walks of life in the central Iranian city of Qom on Monday, marking the Muslim feast of Eid al-Qadr, the leader underlined the designation by the Prophet Muhammad of Imam Ali as his immediate successor came to symbolize the importance of leadership in Islam. Ayatollah Khamenei underscored the event should not turn into a pretext for the enemy to drive a wedge between Muslims and undermine Islam. The leader urged Shiites and Sunnis to remain vigilant and not allow the enemy to take mileage from their religious sentiments. Elsewhere in their remarks, Ayatollah Khamenei underscored the failure of U.S. policies in Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, and occupied Palestine has made Washington seek to divide Shiites and Sunnis, which is all the more reason for Muslims to remain united. Ayatollah Khamenei also touched upon allegations that the White House is trying to form a coalition with Britain and several Arab states against Iran, and added even if such an alliance is formed, it will be of no use to them. The leader said the achievements Iran has secured on various scientific fronts belong to the whole Muslim world, and added the Iranian nation won't renounce its inalienable right to a civilian nuclear program.
Head of the Pakistani Senate's Foreign Relations Committee, Mushahid Hussain, has, in an interview with our reporter, referred to a pipeline which will take Iran's gas to India via Pakistan as the peace pipeline.
This pipeline is a major project. I would even say it's a historic project. It is supposed to link three important countries in the region: Iran, Pakistan, and India. And this pipeline will inshallah be a pipeline of peace and it will promote prosperity, because the gas that we will get from Iran, both for Pakistan and for India, will generate economic progress and industrial development. And Pakistan has also made it very clear that even if India backs out from the pipeline project, Pakistan and Iran will remain committed to that.
Following the conclusion of oil and gas deals between Iran and China, a number of U.S. congressmen have called for sanctions against the Chinese companies involved in oil and gas projects in Tehran. Based on a report by the Chinese daily, The Global Times, the U.S. congressmen assert the recent Sino-Iranian agreements run counter to the U.S. D'Amato sanctions law, calling for the case to be discussed at the House of Representatives. The Global Times then rejects the claims as unfounded, adding Chinese firms are not the first to be targeted by the U.S. sanctions law. Algeria has criticized the double-standard approach of the West over Iran's civilian nuclear program. Mohammad Tufiani, a senior Algerian foreign ministry official, said Monday Algiers deems unacceptable such a double standard which keeps a blind eye to the nuclear weapons of certain countries but does not tolerate the civilian atomic work by some others at the same time. This comes as Algiers is to host a that is a continental conference on the peaceful use of atomic technology on Tuesday. The two-day gathering will discuss the application of atomic know-how in civilian areas such as medicine, agriculture, industry and environment. The Saudi daily Okaz has in an article provided more details on the U.S. help to former Iraqi dictator Saddam during the 8-year Iraqi-imposed war against Iran in the 80s. The article says Saddam, who couldn't face Iranian officials on the political front, involved himself in a war of attrition. The article also shed light on the secret meetings the former Iraqi strongman had with senior authorities at the same time, including 3 top CIA officers in Jordan, before launching the war against Iran. Among the highlights of the article is that the White House offered to the former Baghdad regime tens of billions of dollars in cash aid, as well as modern weaponry, namely cluster bombs and anti-missiles tank, to be used against Iranian troops. At least 17 people were killed in attacks across Iraq Monday. This comes as the trial of 6 former Iraqi officials over the mass killing of 182,000 Kurdish villagers in Anfal campaign from 1980 through 1988 resumed today, but without their executed co-accused Saddam. At the start of the session, the prosecutor produced an audio tape, which he claimed was the voice of Saddam, who okayed the use of chemical weapons on crowds of Kurds. The chief judge, however, said the Iraqi High Tribunal has dropped all legal proceedings against the ousted Saddam. The prosecutor also presented a video clip that showed former Defense Minister Ali Hassan al-Majid, known as Chemical Ali, planning chemical attacks. If convicted, all 6 defendants could face the death penalty. In a related comment, influential Iraqi politician Abdulaziz al-Hakim called for the swift execution of 2 former aides of Saddam. Hakim, the leader of the Supreme Council of the Islamic Revolution in Iraq, SCIRI, also urged authorities to stay on course to take legal actions against all the criminals who have the bloods of the Iraqi people on their hands.
The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. Please visit linktv.org/Mosaic for more information about these broadcasters or to view previous Mosaic programs, obtain program transcripts, or receive the weekly Mosaic Intelligence Report. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Feyerdahl Foundation, the Otto Haas Charitable Trust, and by committed Link TV viewers like you. If you value this program, please send your tax-deductible contribution to Link TV, either through the website or the mailing address listed on your screen. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.